Good afternoon, everybody. It is Wednesday, it is 12 noon, and we are here to share some information here on Mom's Mentoring Circle. So, I just want to welcome you. My name is Deborah Porter, and I support at home moms with systems and services to help them be more organized in their home, with their personal lives, their own calendars, their children, and their homes. So, today I'm super excited because a dear friend of mine is going to be joining us. And I think that, in fact, I know that it's going to be something that's going to serve everyone that's on the live today. So, we're going to get started in just a few minutes. I'm going to take a few minutes and brag on my friend, Barb Roose. Barb is a very popular speaker. She's an author. She's a friend, a mother. She wears many hats. And Barb's passionate about connecting women to one another and to God. So without further ado, she's just joined. So I'm going to go ahead and add you, Barb. That request is coming through right now. Hello.
Hello, good to see you.
Good to see you. How are you?
I am doing fantastic. I'm actually coming to you. I'm in Western Illinois today.
Wow.
So I'm at a retreat center, just retreating.
I love it. I love it. That's awesome. Well, I was just sharing with everybody a little bit about you, Barb, and how you are passionate about connecting women to each other and also to God. I've enjoyed knowing you and your friendship for over 10 years now, and I'm just overjoyed that you would join us today. So I just want to share a little bit about what folks are saying about you.
Well,
I
I am
am
honored.
this has become one of my favorites, and this is Barb's Joshua study on winning the battle against worry. And some of what folks are saying about this, one person said the study is perfect for people like me who need tangible 1, 2, 3 advice on how to stop the cycle of worry. I think all of us at any given moment are in need of that. So I'm going to go ahead and give the floor over to you, Barb, and I would love for you to just share whatever you would like concerning this topic for all of us. I'd encourage everybody get some paper, get a pen. I'm taking notes.
Well, Deb, thank you again for asking. I have so many wonderful memories of not just your friendship, but just the tremendous wisdom I have learned from you over the years. I have loved watching how you have a heart for hospitality, as well as just a beautiful way of declaring truth, the kind of truth that's best for people, that lets know how much they're loved and valued. So you being a part doing Mom's Mentoring Circle, like I'm hoping that folks understand what a tremendous gift in you that you're willing to share with others. And that is deeply, honey, absolutely. It's so this conversation about winning the worry battle, uh, we have people that we love and that we care about. So worry comes from the fact that we see something happening in someone's life, and we in our mind we project to the end of a situation. So if whether it is a college student that says that they're having trouble making rent, and we have this fear that they're going to end up homeless on the street, or they're just going to eat McDonald's 38 days in a row, or maybe it is a spouse who are having troubles on the job and you're terrified they might get fired, or maybe someone that you love, they're talking about a health condition. When we have people in our lives that we see them struggling, our tendency is to go to the worst case scenario in their lives. And Deb, I don't know about you, if you can think of for you as a parent, did you ever have times when you jumped to the worst case?
I don't have enough fingers to tell you how many times.
It's a natural thing. A woman named Orskinazy, she calls it worst first thinking. It's when there's a situation that happens and we immediately jump to the worst case scenario. Like, case in point, if you're at the doctor's, or if you get a call from the doctor on Friday and they say, hey, we need you to call in on Monday for test results, you spend the weekend planning your funeral. Like, you may have just gone in for random blood work, but you see them telling you you have this horrible disease. You see all of the things. You see yourself hoping they dress you in your favorite dress at your funeral. But when it comes, right?
Yeah.
But when it comes to our children, it's especially our older children, this can really mess up, especially a mama's heart. And so, ladies, if you're listening, I'm talking to you as a woman who has been an empty nest parent for 1 week right now. I have my oldest daughter, 26. She's on deployment in the Middle East, and she's in missile and defense systems. I have a middle daughter who lives by herself. She's 23. She lives around the corner from me, lives on her own. And then my 18-year-old daughter is in Florida. I live in Ohio, and she's in Florida for the summer. This morning at 5:56 a.m., I got a text from her. It's her first day of work, and the dress that she was planning to wear, she put it in the dryer, and it's too small. And so she said, so if you have older children, you know that there are things they make, decisions they make, things that happen in their lives, choices, roads they follow, and we can't go with them. And so what's the mama to do? Especially when you see your children that you love, they begin living their lives in a way that you go, I wouldn't have made that decision, or, oh, I don't know, do they know everything they need to know? So I want to share with you 3 things that have been things that I write about in Joshua, but also things I've had to wrestle through. And so the first thing for me is I realized I needed to understand the difference between a worry and a concern. Deb, when you think about worry versus concern, kind of what are some things that come to mind for you?
So the first thing that comes to mind when you say worry or concern is sometimes in that moment they blur, and it's very hard to know the difference and to be able to distinguish which one am I doing. I think sometimes I'm concerned, and I also want to get God on my side sometimes and kind of use that, knowing, well, God, this would concern you too, but many times I've already stepped into worry.
I love how you distinguish that idea of getting God into the conversation, because a lot of our worry is driven by seeing the solution only through our eyes, the way that we think that something should unfold. It's so we can't know everything that happens in a situation. So worry is how we mentally fill in the blanks for the things that we don't know. That's when we worry. Concern is based on tangible evidence. So a practical example, announces the downsizing. You can be worried that you're going to lose your job, not find another job. Those are uncertainties in the future. But concern is, how long will I be working? Do I have an updated resume? Concern is, do I know people who might be able to introduce me to new employers? Those are tangible, actionable items. When it comes to our kids, when my oldest daughter said, when she is on deployment, this summer she ran into some issues at her job where she was really struggling. I had to really fight hard against thinking about, oh, what about failure? What if she doesn't reach her goals? Like those things. But concern was, I could ask her, how are you doing on sleep? Are you getting enough sleep? Concern was, she needs to be encouraged. So I could text her or I could call her just to encourage her. So I could find tangible things that I could do that would support her and love her, even though I couldn't fix the problem for her.
So it sounds like what you're talking about then is that concern kind of are things that are within our control that we can do. Worry is really those things that are outside our control that we cannot do. Is that right?
That is exactly right. Our job as moms, especially when we had those babies, our job was to keep alive. So we did at the very beginning of our lives, we were responsible for everything to keep them alive. We were responsible for making sure they were safe and nurturing and loved. But as our kids cross over to adulthood, it's no longer our job, as hard as this sounds, moms. It's no longer our job to keep them alive. In fact, it never was our job to begin with. God gave us stewardship over taking care of our children. But when you think about worry and concern, worry drives us to do things to try to force an outcome based on what we see as best.
Yeah.
Concern is how to show love and care in the moment without fixing things. And this is something, the part where Deb talked about inviting God to be a part of the process. This requires discernment and wisdom. We had a situation, my middle daughter, her senior year of high school, she was 18 years old, and right before spring break, we received a letter in the mail that they said, Mr. and Mrs. Roose, we're so sorry to inform you that your daughter may not graduate from high school. Now, the last time we checked, she had a 3.7 grade average and a scholarship. But somewhere over the months, without us knowing it, she had run into some mental blocks, some emotional things that she was going through that resulted in a situation that was really scary. And we had some hard decisions we had to make. And those decisions were, how much of this with her teachers? Do we go in and try to clean up the mess for her? Or do we sit her down and say, we love you, we care about you, but you're 18 years old. Tell us, what are some of the things you think you need to do to make this right? And through that process, we went to the school. We met with the guidance counselor. That's what we were asked to do. But she had to, as an 18-year-old emerging adult, she had to think through what was her responsibility to make it right. And as her mom and dad, we had to step back and we had to manage ourselves. That's a really hard thing for us to do. We had to manage ourselves. We had to deal with our fear, and we had to let her be in charge of navigating the situation for herself. And guess what? Assignments that she still could turn in, and she had to do those assignments by the deadline. And we also let her know if she couldn't get it done, she was responsible for making it right. If she didn't graduate, we told her she would need to pay for her own GED. We told her the whole time that we loved her. The hardest part of the process was me managing my fears for her future. I had to be willing to let her fail and trust that she could turn to God.
That's a big one for us as moms. One is the letting go of the control. But two, I think sometimes we attach our success to our kids' success. And so when they fail or mess up, somehow it is a direct reflection on who we are. What do you think about that?
You nailed it. That is one of the greatest fears, that we will be seen as someone who failed our children. I love Sylvia said managing ourselves as parents. That's it. And Tamara, she's saying not easy at all. That's right. So if you're a mom out there today, the school year, whether it's the college school year, high school, elementary school, if your child ended the year and maybe the grades didn't look as great as they did, maybe you're looking back on a year of a lot of disciplinary actions, or a year where you could barely get them to class or to school every day.
Yeah.
The children, as my Melissa Spolstra says, she says, our children are not our report cards.
Woo.
Mm-hmm. Our children are not our report cards. That's from her book, Total Family Makeover. I can tell you, as an adult woman who's dealing with a family crisis situation, that even into adulthood, if you're watching today and your children are in their 20s and their 30s, even their 40s, that it still can have an impact. If you have a son or a daughter who is making not great decisions in their adult life and it's impacting their family, you putting your fingers in it and trying to help is not in the best interest. There's a question during that season or years ago that a therapist asked me when I was having struggles with thinking about my daughter's future. This question is a question that changed how I parented. And it's this: it's, will we let our children discover their need for God?
Woo! That took me out right there. That's good. That's
When
good.
you hear that question, what does that mean to you, Deb, when you hear that?
So, I had a similar conversation with a friend of mine, Diana Patton, who who's going to be a guest next month. But she said to me one time, I called her, I was upset about something, and her point to me was, our children are going to have their own testimony, and it may not look anything like yours. And so you've got to kind of step back and allow God to become their God, not my mama's God that I went to church to serve.
And that's the line, that God has to become their God. I don't know. Now, Deb, I know some of your story. I have some favorite lines. Friends, if you're watching, Deb and I, we were part of a mom's mentoring group together years ago. And when you think about your life, some of the most important life changes that you ever made, those life changes came because you had to face yourself, right?
That's right. That's right.
I think about the most important life changes, and it wasn't because my mom told me or my dad. It was because I had the freedom to run off and do whatever I wanted, live however I wanted, make all of the craziness that I wanted. And when there was no one there to clean up the mess, I could see God crystal and clear in that moment.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I could see myself for who I truly was. And that is, as parents, that's the greatest gift that we can give our children, is the ability for them to see themselves as they truly are.
So let me ask you this.
And the bad.
In that moment when we have crossed from concern to worry, or when we're not even sure, we're in that gray area, what are some because this study gives really practical, I don't know if you guys can see it, but there's this little chart that kind of lets you really look at its examples, like situations. So calling to check on someone, is that worry or concern? Providing a meal, is that worry or concern? Giving money I don't have, is that worry or concern? So in a practical way, for those, until they're able to get their hands on this Bible study, what are some things that we can do for ourselves in that moment to kind of pull it back? Because I think if we let worry sit there, it will run amok. How do we bring it back in?
So worry is about us. It's about our fear. So the very first thing that we have to grapple is to face our fears. And you can either do this in a journal, you can do this with a therapist or a good friend, to talk about what is it that you fear. If you have a child or a loved one who is involved in addiction, I know a real fear is that they're going to kill themselves. You've got to be honest about that, because not being honest about that fear is going to drive behaviors to cover up that fear. You're going to try to do all of the things. So the first is to be honest and confront your fears. And I promise you, as hard as it will be, it will be freeing. It will be so freeing. It doesn't make the fear go away, but at least it doesn't make the situation go away, but you will not be held as captive as you were. The second, and this is the most tangible, is stop pouring money into bad situations.
Woo! You preaching now, girl.
There is a tool in the Winning the Worry Battle book. There's a Bible study in a book. I call it the Sort It Out tool. Step one is, am I legally responsible for this person? If you're legally responsible for someone, then you've got to follow, like, food, clothing, shelter, all the things. If you're not legally responsible for them, then step two is, am I contributing to a situation that's on the upswing, or am I contributing to a situation that is losing momentum? So if you have a child, an adult child, who they have a car payment, and if they like something happens in 1 month, can't make their car payment, yeah, you know what? If everything else in that child's life is on a good trajectory, they just made a mistake, you can make the choice of whether or not to help. But if they have called you 3 out of 6 months to help them make their car payment, it's not about the car payment. There's something else that's happening in their lives. And when you give them the money for the car payment, you're covering up what they need to work on. And I know that it's hard because they go, but what if they can't get to work? That's where fear comes in. What if they can't get to work? What if they can't pick their kids up from school? But it's not your job to solve it. This is the place where they need to get in touch with what is it that God wants me to do. When my oldest daughter was at West Point her freshman year, she was 18 years old. She got her Army pay. She messed up her bank account every month for the first 6 months. And that meant that she had no spending money. It meant that she was running short on obligations. I was dying on the vine. And I know you'll figure this out. Honey, I know you'll figure this out. A couple of weeks ago on deployment, she said, Barb, she said, Mom, she said, I maxed out my savings goal for this year. I'm fully funded on my retirement, and I have 6 months in emergency savings.
Come on now. And that's because you didn't step in to rescue her.
I wanted to so badly. We want to rescue kids. Money is often the thing that we pour into because we feel like that's tangibly helping. The third thing, so the first thing is figure out what those fears are. The second is stop pouring money on top of problems. And the third is do not lecture. Do not lecture. None of us ever change because someone lectured. If your text messages are this long to your children, if you are sending text messages this long to children over the age of 18, they are not reading them. It is not helping them. I hate to break this to you. Deb, why are text messages this long not helpful?
Well, they're not helpful because it's the Charlie Brown teacher. Wah, 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 wah. Like, that's what they hear. And, you know, I remember when one of ours was leaving for college, and I remember just starting to really fret and really be a little anxious about it. It was our oldest. And I remember saying, Cliff, I don't know if we taught her this. I'm not sure if we remember to do this. And I'm not sure. And he's like, look, we did the best we knew to do. We raised her up in the nurture and admonition of the Lord. We've got to trust that what we did was sufficient, but we have to remember that God will make up the difference. We don't know everything. We miss something. He said, I can guarantee you we missed something, but that's where God's going to make up the difference.
That is the line right there, that God is going to make up the difference, that he knows our children inside and out. He knows the trajectory. He knows the lessons that they are going to need to learn that they weren't able to learn under our roof. He is there in the low moment when they are crying, and our prayer should be that they turn to him instead of turning to us. Because there are so many times when we will get in the way of our child's need for God, and it will make the both of us miserable. And so a prayer that I often pray for my children is, God, let my kids discover their need for you. Inherent in that prayer, I know, will be things that will break my heart. I have to accept that.
You know,
but I have to trust.
What I love about that too, though, is that you are not sitting down praying over a particular issue. Like, God, let some money come into her account some kind of way, or God, let, you know, but you're praying for God, just reach them, you know, do what they need. I remember praying for a particular situation over one child, and I remember the Lord saying, why don't you just pray I capture their heart? because that's only the one issue you know about. There's a whole lot of other issues that you don't even know about. How about if you just pray that I woo all of them and just reach them in their heart?
And that's the harder prayer to pray, because that's not the easy prayer. That's not the prayer that fixes the problems, because the heart issues that our sweet little cherubs that we birthed, that we nurtured, that we kissed and hugged and called so cute, they have the same sinful hearts that we do. And so when we pray for God to capture their heart, as parents, we have to be patient enough with God's process. That
Yeah.
is hard.
Yeah. So you
But
give us the 3 points on how to combat worry when it raises up. And I think I detoured you because you were also starting out with your main 3 points, which was how to distinguish between worry and concern. I think you touched a little bit on one of those about, am I preventing my child from experiencing their need for God? So I don't know if you want to expound on that a little bit more, but then I think you had one other point you wanted to address too about hurting or helping our kids.
well, and I think the 3 points that I gave about figuring out your fear, about the not pouring money on a bad situation,
Mm,
and then 3, making sure to not nag. Those are addressing that hurting and helping.
got it.
One
Perfect.
of the things here is, if there's someone out there going, how do I know when I need to rein myself in? If you're asking that question of, do I need to rein myself in? A couple of tidbits are, if you are stalking your child on the Find Friends app on Apple, or if you are constantly watching the GPS on your child, your adult child, you have to ask yourself, why am I doing this? Why do I feel the need to constantly track my adult child? Another clue is, if you are stressed out all of the time about a child who lives out of the house. If you are texting them, I call it mother hen, cluck, 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 nag, 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 nag. Are you okay? Do you have enough money? What time are you getting home? Are you like, if you are texting that child every single day and they have a full-time job paying their own bills, that might be a sign that you might need to rein it back in a little bit. If your child has stopped communicating with you because they've made comments that you nag too much and they don't want to spend time with you, it might be that you might need to think about reining it in. I discovered that I can speak the truth to my adult daughters when they ask me for it.
Mm,
But the rest of the time, I want to build a relationship with them. Because when I'm giving advice to them and they're not asking for it, that is not a relationship builder for them.
woo, you dropping more. I'm on my fifth card with notes here. This is really incredible. There are a few comments that I'd love for you to address in a moment, but I just want to ask one other question. Can we measure our wins? Can we know that we're doing it right when we course correct?
I love that. Some of the milestones that I look for are the quality of conversations that I have with my daughters and what they share with me. That's how I measure how well I'm doing. One of my children recently shared something with me that was of a really sensitive nature. And I called that a win, that she invited me into a part of her life that she could have very well kept to herself. So when our children, our adult children, are able to be authentic and vulnerable with us, that means that they feel safe and respected around us, especially when they do it and not expect us to fix things. Because sometimes our kids will be vulnerable and other because they want a pity party, they want us to come to the rescue, tell us how bad life is. But when they are talking to us authentically and sharing what went well, what went wrong, telling us about what's happening in their lives, they feel safe and respected. And that's how I measure how I'm doing in communicating with my kids. Whether or not I keep my calm when they tell me about things that go wrong, that I don't flip out and go crazy. I know when I do that, so I go, when I hang up, I go, okay, I handled that pretty well. Man, that's a bad situation. Woo! But I handled that pretty well because I know then that they'll call again and let me know how they're doing.
Because that is the goal, right? The goal is the relationship and the friendship with our adult children. And there is definitely a learning curve when you've been parenting children for so long. There's a learning curve on now switching that off and moving into being the parent of an adult. There, wouldn't you say?
So the retreat center where I'm at this weekend, I'm meeting with a couple of author friends. So my friend Jill Savage, she used to be the director of Hearts at Home. Her new book is titled Empty Nest, Full Life. It's coming out in August. I actually endorsed the book. She's part of my retreat. She's here with me this weekend. The book is called Empty Nest, Full Life. I love Rochelle Watkins. Honey, I'm glad you got some wins in there. Congratulations. She's talking about those adult parent wins. Good for you. But it's a really big change for us to parenting adult kids because we're used to giving our opinions about everything. It's hard keeping those opinions to ourselves.
It's hard. And not only that, so, you have different children. There are kids that will tell you, look, back up. But then there are other kids that will just retreat and they won't say anything to you about what you're saying, but their heart is retreating farther and farther from you. So to be able to have some handles on how I can measure my wins and what that looks like and what's the difference in the type of conversations we want to have is very helpful. Uh-oh. I think we lost Barb. I think she'll come back. I'm going to go ahead and read a couple of comments until she comes back in. Sylvia says, I've had my whole body in a child situation and all it caused. What was conflict in our relationship? This time around, God said, stop, wait, and listen to me. Move when I ordain the appointed time so it has the most impact in the life of your child. So far, he has been faithful. That's fantastic. Um, Being able to pause and listen and not, be so quick to respond, uh, when they need us. Okay, here's Barb again. Let's see if I can get her back. All right, Barb, I'm trying. Let's see. All right, we've got some technical issues going on, people, but we're going to keep working on it. Just give me a couple of seconds to see if I can bring Barb back in. All right, Barb, I'm trying. Here we go. All right, that invite should be coming back to you, Barb. Let's see if we can.
Sorry about that. I
That's
am so sorry. I was like, oh no, come back.
Don't apologize. Technology, it's what we deal with, but it's allowing us to do this. So that's perfectly okay. So I was reading a couple of the comments that were on, and how everybody is really being able to relate to exactly what you're saying and finding great value in what you're sharing with us. So to wrap it up, how would you put a nice little bow on what we've talked about today?
Well, for everyone who joined and commented, I am so glad that you've all joined. And Mookie Blaylock, that's my brother. Hey, Bear. So he just turned 40. Uh, so I think that the great summary and the reason why we're all invested in this is because a parent's heart, a mama's heart, it never stops being for their child. So I want to speak a quick word of encouragement for you out there if you're listening and you have been facing some challenges with your adult sons and daughters. Those challenges are hard. because you don't have the kind of control that you did once upon a time. But it's in this space where we get to trust God. I am comforted in knowing that God has his eye on my oldest daughter, who is in the Middle East, who is facing dangers that I have absolutely no idea about.
Yeah.
But I know that God is with her. I know that God is at Disney with my youngest daughter, who wore something today. I don't know what she wore because the dress she was planning to wear was too small and she was freaking out. That God is present with my middle daughter as she walks back and forth to work every day. When I vision, when we keep the reality that God is present with our children every second of every day, that then I can be comfortable in knowing that he is not going to drop the ball in their lives. It doesn't mean that our kids are going to make life-giving choices, but what we can celebrate is that they always have, or that we always have the hope that they can make life-giving choices. That's what we can hope for, even when they're not.
And there's always an opportunity to change and a second chance. I mean, I think of all the chances that God has given me and all of the things that could have gone wrong, but didn't go wrong because of his faithfulness. So I think just if we take a moment and look back, even in our own lives, of how gracious and merciful God has been and how much we love our children, how much more does their Father God love them and want to see them do well?
That's exactly right. And to keep that perspective, I believe that when we take the time to reflect on God's faithfulness to us, that faithfulness came as a result of hard things that we faced.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we look at our children's lives, that we go, this is a place where they have an opportunity to meet their need for God, and for us to not get in the way of
Yeah.
consequences are
Yeah.
heartbreaking,
This has been
hard.
so rich. This has been so rich, Barb. It's just been very, very helpful. I appreciate you coming in even as you are retreating. So thank you so much. And I'm going to put up your link. I'm going to put up the link to the Joshua Bible study. And just so that you all will have some more information about Barb, if your church or organization is looking for a speaker, I personally can tell you that Barb is like Mary Poppins. She gives you a spoonful of sugar to help the medicine go down, because what she's going to give you is going to help change your life. It's not always comfortable, but she presents in a way that allows you to really open up and be willing to receive. So I'm going to put all of your information up, Barb. And again, thank you so much. Hopefully, if you have some time later this week, pop back in and answer some questions or comments for folks if you can.
I will. I will. I love that so many people have joined us, all of the great comments out there. If you left a comment, thank you for being a part of the conversation, sharing your experience, your strength, and your hope. Go ahead and leave your stories and encourage each other. And Deb, thank you for creating this space for us to come together.
Thank you so much, Barb. Thank you, everybody, for joining in. I'm going to pop into and look at some questions, but this was just such a rich Wednesday afternoon. I appreciate everybody joining in. Have a great day, everybody. Barb, thank you, honey.
Bye, everyone.